What's up, everybody? Jackson here today with my little brother Chubbz.
Hello, everyone.
Today we're going to be talking about Outward, and this is going to be a co-op impressions video and why, in my opinion, if you've got someone to play this game with, fucking buy it now. It's, in my opinion, worth every penny at the starting price of $40 and this is from 9 Dot Studios. And before we get into the game, I kind of just wanted to read this mission statement from them. This is on their official website. This is just cool as fuck. And I feel this is such, like, because I had no idea about these guys. I saw a video about Outward. I looked into it, started looking up videos, listening to these guys talk about it fanatically. Like, it's so great, blah, blah, blah. Immersive, fucking... RPGs aren't like this, like, just like such glowing praise about and that's what I look for, right? Like, Anthem isn't an RPG. Destiny isn't an RPG, right? They may have co-opted the fucking title, but they never earned the goddamn crown.
Right.
And I feel like when you look at like games like Grim Dawn that we've played, other games that blend the action RPG elements and the fucking legitimate RPG elements, storytelling, crafting, player involvement within the course of the media.
Oh, yeah.
Where it feels like you're involved in every moment and you've earned these things. Like Imlereth, when Witcher Geralt fucking whips out you, who fucking taught you to fight like this? The Witcher you killed, and then he slays Imlereth. That moment is nothing if you just look that cutscene up. I could show so many people that I'd be like, cool, that's a well-rendered, you know, cutscene. That looks really good, you know, very realistic. Kind of cool, you know, badass guy getting, you know, murdered. But the build up to that, the player interaction with Imlereth all the way up with fucking OG, what's his name? I forget right now.
Oh, shit. Vesemir.
Vezi. With Vezi, you know, like that backplay, that built up to that moment, that is the sort of thing that makes an RPG.
Oh, yeah.
Right? When I hit Cabal Bane, I've been detached the entire time. I've been witnessing his entire story and arc through a fucking cutscene that's been pre-rendered, like an episodic fucking television show. Right? That's how I've been interacting with this Cabal Bane. So when I fight him, there's no grand feeling of fucking epicness. No. You know? It's just
you don't get the same feeling as you would get from other RPGs. And that's why it's so funny that this industry, they think it's so funny to me that they think that they can just take one element from an RPG game and put it into a game and they dub that RPG.
Yes. Well, I think this is the perfect way that they've described this. So this is the About page. 9 Dots aims at developing games that will drive the industry forward. To achieve this, we treat developers like human beings and video games like art rather than toys. We want to develop games for various niche markets, mostly towards the more mature and educated gamers, I say as I fucking stutter over it. I get nervous when I read shit out loud, don't judge me. The video game industry is currently affiliated by issues both in what we produce and how we produces it. Now, this doesn't mean that we don't like gaming. Everyone at 9 Dots is passionate about video games, and that is why we want to see the industry evolve into something even better. There's just too much potential. It has to be explored further. We'll lead by example and try to find and apply solutions to the issues affecting our industry. So, that right there is a loaded middle finger to a lot of fucking... And it's a lot of things that I believe. Like, they're not saying this out of being judgmental or anything. This is just their perspective. They feel like video games have been dumbed down. Like, you can tell that from that. When they say, we're leading towards a niche market, more mature and educated gamers. Let's be real. If you're buying microtransaction skins in a game like Anthem, that does not apply to you. No. You are not the audience that a game like 9 Dots is aiming for. You're not.
No.
You're okay with what BioWare and EA did day one, the imbalanced, broken 6-year project that ended up feeling like an alpha test. You're okay with that to the point where you're willing to spend $20 on a fucking vinyl for your fucking in-game character model that you should own already with the admission price. You're okay with that? That's the sort of thing that I think they're talking about there. And I'm not affiliated with 9dots. I'm just saying it's fucking refreshing to read something like that.
Oh yeah.
To be taken with respect, treated as a human being who's intelligent and is mature enough to handle hard difficulty, crazy mechanics. We can handle it.
To figure out a progression system that isn't like clean cut like any other
cookie
game.
cutter. Yeah,
like this isn't like even World of Warcraft in vanilla, where I think it was better than it is now, where you had multiple different options, but you know, every time you leveled up, you got a talent point.
Yeah,
this is even more obscure. Like you have to go out there and find NPCs and be like, hey, what do you teach? Yeah. You know what I mean? And then you have to buy it with currency that you're going to use to barter the entire time.
You have to go on a pilgrimage in order to just gain a mana bar. And that's not to learn really overpowered magic or have a super good ability. That's just to sacrifice. You got to go on a pilgrimage to a mountain, to a ley line, and then offer up 25, or I think it's 5% of your health and stamina for a mana bar. So
you start out with Spark.
Yeah. One spell that really doesn't do that much.
Nope.
Outside of the context of the way magic works, which is amazing.
Yes.
So you can tell that this is a company already with what we've experienced in the 9 hours that we've played this game cooperatively. In that little amount of time, we have grand stories to tell. We would recommend this game wholeheartedly at the asking price of $40 to anyone who loves RPGs. We would add some caveats to that, which we will. We're going to talk about some of the weaker points in the game for sure, so that you can make an educated decision about this purchase. But to me right now, if you're going to play it co-op, just get it. Because the weaknesses go out the window kind of if you're playing it with a friend. So this is the next on the About page, this is the next paragraph. The problem with what the industry does. Any art form has to evolve. At the beginning of cinema, TV shows were recorded just like theater pieces. The camera was idle in front of a stage. Moving the camera around revealed a whole new dimension to filmmaking. Video games are currently still done using an idle camera. Rather than explore the content of video games, the industry focused on exploring the container. Instead of tackling different subject matters, we tried different input methods, from gamepad to motion control to touchscreen. We have more RAM, but do we have that much more meaningful experiences? We care too much about technology, not enough about the message we could deliver to our audience. Video games' greatest strength is interactivity. Our audience isn't passive. It has an impact on its experience. We should strive to increase this impact as much as possible. The users must shape their experience through customization, expression, and exploration. These will always be in the forefront of the 9dots experience, and we'll try to explore a variety of themes along the way. Now, doesn't that just sound fucking awesome?
Oh, yeah.
When you think about the 9 hours we've spent playing Outward, doesn't that fit?
Oh, yeah.
That fits so... You feel like there's so much is on you, on what you should be doing, and you feel like you're surviving in a very harsh world. You don't feel like an overpowered, character with a cookie cutter spec.
You're not the chosen one.
And you feel like you're constantly fairly rewarded, and sometimes randomly rewarded in what is the coolest experience that I have personally ever had in a video game.
Oh yeah. That story of and that was something that came completely out of the blue.
There's the blue.
So many, that other thing, the hyena cave, that came completely out of the blue. Some of these things are crazy.
So the way this works is when you die in this game, which you inevitably will, the game is very hard. And in order to really talk about that, I think we should talk about the first weak point that I would put forth to anyone about this game, something that a lot of people are not going to be able to get over. I don't think that a lot of people who play this game, and when you look at the reviews on Steam, user reviews, you can see almost uniformly, everyone who is downvoting this game and saying don't buy it, not recommending it, they're saying it's because of the combat. So it reminds me of Elex combat. Elex combat, Piranha Bytes combat is very clunky. The dodge is kind of unreliable sometimes, especially in Elex. The only one I've played is Elex. But the dodge in that game was unreliable due to hitboxes being larger than animations on enemy attacks, things like that. So it definitely felt clunky, but it also felt like a hardcore RPG experience where I was put into a world that was full, and this is much the same way that Outward works as well. I was put into a world that had no lines, no boundaries, and you could stumble onto an enemy that would fuck you up in one hit just as easily as you could stumble across, a bare bones like wolf animal, right? Or like a little carnivore, something like that.
One-shottable enemy.
Yeah, something that's really not that hard to take out, something that you're at level to kill and you can handle.
Right.
And that feels how Outward is. The difference is with Outward is that Chubbz is there. Now, in Elex, you had an AI companion that would back you up, sort of. But the AI companion sometimes was useless. I mean, it can't compare. Like, an AI companion can't compare to a player who knows how to play the game and is talking in communication with the other player. So me and Chubbz are playing. I'm like, I'll pull him and you just sneak up and hit him, right? I got the shield early on. We killed an enemy. I looted him. It was a shield. I was like, I'm taking it. So I've just been kind of using that and fucking blocking and drawing aggro and trying to get their attention, which worked out really well because I also got the sword weapon, and that NPC at the beginning area gave me that skill that's the puncture.
So the weapon automatically causes bleed because it's a serrated edged sword.
And it had already worked out for Chubbz because you found that two-handed spear. And you were like, the halberd.
The halberd, the two-handed cleaver off of the commander in a bandit camp.
That's the one you got now. But remember, you were using two-hand before that.
Well, yeah, that was the two-handed axe. I found a two-handed axe in a tree trunk in the main town. And I was
that's
like,
what it was.
Okay.
Yeah, it was an axe.
I was like, sweet.
So you were already like digging the two-handed, and I found the shield, and I was like already using a sword, and I'd gotten a bleed attack with it, so I started using the shield, and it just kind of evolved that I was kind of tanking while you were sneaking up behind and getting them in the back.
Yeah, and if there were more than one enemy,
then it's kind of like we draw off. Because it's hard, and you're gonna die in this game. You're gonna die.
Oh yeah, you're gonna get mobbed a lot. You're gonna be sprinting through fields and see 12 fucking hyenas, and you're just gonna be sprinting like, oh my god, how many
just
more?
Just trying to get away from this mob of enemies. But I feel like what this game does the best. So there's crafting in it, and the crafting is definitely, there's a huge survival element to this game, where you're going to need to eat food, you're going to need to have fresh, clean water to drink, you're going to need to have something to, build a campfire with, which is easy, because all you really need and that's the thing that I like about it, is the essentials. It never feels like you need to travel far for essentials.
Yeah.
It feels like there's always a source of water, or a source of wood, or a source of, like everything you need. And then you just have your backpack and your backpack mechanic. The backpack mechanic is awesome as fuck.
It's way cool.
I love the way the backpack mechanic works. So the backpack can be thrown off of your character and thrown to the ground for combat, which is probably a good idea because realistically, if you were going to fight something and have a big bag on your back, it's going to slow you down. It's going to weaken your ability to dodge and stuff. With the shield, I don't really ever have to do it, but I notice you do it a lot, Chubbz.
Oh yeah, I'll take it off just because I don't have a blocking weapon. I'm using a two-handed weapon, so my block absorption is I'm taking more damage if I block, so I'm going to want to dodge. So, and that's another really cool thing, is if you have it on you, the dodge animation is a lot like the fat roll.
Yeah,
Dark Souls.
Yeah, you're a fat roller.
Yeah,
you do like a really slow, awkward tumble.
Yeah, you go in on your shoulder, and you're like, with the animation, it's almost like you can feel the weight hit your character's shoulder. You come up all sideways, like, fuck, that was a hell of a thing.
And the game is really tough combat wise, and I feel like a lot of people with the combat are going to look at it as a negative, and a lot of people aren't going to be able to get past it. If you're able to, you're going to find an in-depth crafting system with cooking, armor crafting, weapon crafting. You can craft
to survival crafting, where you can craft campfire kits, tents, alchemy. Yeah.
There's alchemy in the game. There's all sorts of different things that you're able to craft, that you're going to want to craft, because it's going to help your character in a huge way. Like, if you get the cold, you can drink a tea that will cure the cold.
Yep.
If you get indigestion, there's a, and the way at which you find these is either on a recipe that you pick up and activate within your bag. You'll learn that recipe, and then you're going to be able to, or you can experiment and come up with the recipe all by yourself. Like, for instance, I discovered that I was able to make some tea using this bug and this water, pure water, and I was able to make a tea that helps you survive cold weather.
Right.
Which is good because it just started snowing in our world, in our game world, and we barely have any warm gear for each other, to keep
for one of us,
because
both
you're
of us.
sharing loot in co-op too. That's another way that it gets harder. It gets harder in the enemies have more health, they have more damage output, but also you're sharing everything you get.
You're sharing the loot, the money.
So if the game offers you in whoever the host player's world is, if it offers them a coat, they get the coat. You don't get the coat as the client player.
Same with skills, abilities, and another thing, the merchants work this way too, where like if they only have like, let's say 3 tea, and you bought all 3 of that tea, well, that merchant doesn't have any tea for me until they refresh and get more inventory after days. Yeah, after days of them brewing more.
The day-night cycle goes then that's cool. And food will degrade over time too. You can of course make separate recipes and cook like rations that are able to be kept in storage for a long time. And so your inventory, what you actually take into the world, has to be carefully considered. Now, inventory management is something in games that's very fickle with me. Most of the time I view it as just a pain in my fucking ass that's getting in the way, right? Of stopping me from getting, like, just, I want to grab everything,
Right.
But the thing about most games is they're always throwing shit at you that you can pick up.
Oh, yeah.
And it's almost like the inventory weight system, I'm just going to say Fallout 4, for example, makes no fucking sense.
Yeah, I was just about to bring that up. A game that has tons of shit, tons of junk. Not tons of shit, tons of junk specifically. Miscellaneous items, cups, pencils, paper clips, all that shit. But then on top of that, it requires that thing to build, and so the entire game is geared towards wanting to pick up everything so that you can build stuff, but you're not going to be able to grab as much as you want because your inventory is telling you, oh, no.
Yeah, they're just limiting you. It almost feels like just it's certain times it feels like a mechanic that's just there to hinder the player.
Yep, to stop you. You gotta run back to base, dump
waste
everything,
your time,
build what you want, go back there,
create these artificial gameplay loops that really this game has in spades. It has these loops because of the inventory system. Right. But it feels like it's a huge focus of it, and it's very rare that you're like, oh man, we've got to leave that behind. Whether it's a 6 silver spear or whether it's, you always feel like the stuff that you really want is usually pretty light.
Yes.
And you always seem to have room for it. Broken up between because what you have equipped doesn't affect your weight. It's what you have in your pocket and then what you have in your backpack. And your backpack can be overfilled to a certain point. It's just going to slow you down. You're going to have your stamina bar drain much faster. Very realistic if you're carrying overweight, but you're able to still, if you want, carry overweight.
Yeah.
And if you get in battle, drop your backpack off your back. That status effect immediately goes away. Now you can worry about the combat situation you found yourself in. It feels like a consideration within the grand scheme of what Outward is, that it doesn't feel oppressive to me. It doesn't feel like I'm ever, like, when we get full, I feel like, okay, let's head back to town, and it feels like we're dropping off a bunch of stuff and making a bunch of silver.
Oh, yeah.
And we haven't really ever had to leave anything behind or stop our exploration short.
And, like, we've gone back to places that we previously explored to pick that stuff up that we couldn't grab, but it's mainly because the entire progression of the game is tied to you're wanting that money. You're gonna want to sell everything
because you don't level up in Outward. You earn silver, and then through silver you find a trainer that will teach you skills that you want for your build, and we're talking from spell swords to mages to, you know, straight up melee builds like martial combat. That's what I'm going for.
And not just activated skills, but passive buffs as well.
Passive buffs.
Those to complement your character build too.
So physical damage.
Exactly. And like we're barely starting out. Like you said, 9 hours in the game.
And you're sharing loot. So we're only getting one player's silver and there's 2 of us there. So
exactly. But we're still feeling this constant progression. We're pushing further out in the map, and we're going and killing all these different things, and we're looting it, and then we're going back to town
to sell,
and we're getting money, we're getting skills, we're getting, you know, fur armor and like tea recipes,
all the things we need.
Oh yeah, because once you,
and each one of those trips feels like an adventure.
Oh yeah,
it feels like an adventure, and anything can happen.
And that's why I feel like the survival elements, I just want to bring this up real quick, they're more entangled with the RPG elements, where it's like you're going out on an adventure. Okay, you got to have the proper clothes for the weather, you got to have your tent or your bedroll, you got to have stuff for a campfire, maybe you want a cooking pot so that you can cook stew, you know what I mean,
maybe you want an alchemy kit so you can make potions.
Exactly. And so it's all tied
and
together.
It's a compromise of what you're having to leave behind, what you're, you know, what you're gonna take. You know, are you gonna bring the mining pick that weighs a lot, you know,
that you could mine the ore,
you know,
or are you going to
because that happened to us. I took it with us on one trip. There was no use for it. I left it back, and then we got out there again,
and we found a bunch of ore,
ton of mana stones and ore, and we couldn't mine any of it because I had decided to make that compromise and bring something that I thought would be more useful. It was for sure. It was useful on the trip what I had brought with us. Because we bought tents, which you got to have if it's snowing, because simple bedroll will do in the summer, but not in the middle of winter.
Yeah, when it's snowing on you. And that's another thing, is the elements in place, like laying down the campfire, laying down your bedrolls, all the way to the sleeping. You know how you have 3 separate criteria. You can sleep. There's a chance of you getting ambushed unless you guard. So there's like a guard and ambush mechanic where it's...
So it's legit. If me and Chubbz were in the middle of a monster-infested
out in the wilds,
lair, one of us would probably want to stay on guard for duty, maybe the first 2 hours of the night, and then, you know, the next person. It feels like an adventuring party.
Oh yeah, and
like an RPG. Like you got to set watch.
Oh yeah, you got to rest to repair your gear.
We're in the fucking wild. Rest and repair gear.
Yeah, repair, and then like say we're resting 4 hours and repairing 2 hours for a total of what, like 7 hours? Okay, but there's a 50% chance that we're gonna get ambushed throughout the night. Well, who's going to take guard? You know what I mean? Maybe sleep 2 hours less, you know, bump up to the guard for 2 hours.
Yeah.
And that's really cool.
It is.
And it leads into like the crazy stories that we have already 9 hours into the game.
Only 9 hours in. And so let's just tell, so all we're going to do is we're going to say, if you're thinking about buying this game, we've just offered up a lot of the way that everything works. Now we're going to offer up an experience, and then we're going to close the video. But I would say as a single player experience, there's probably going to be people who are not going to be able to see past the combat. And that's just fine, because it is clunky and it does take some getting used to. Once you get used to it, I feel like it functions great. I feel like I'm able to pull aggro. And, like, I know what they're going to do. Chubbz is watching them, getting pokes in.
And if you're willing to sacrifice for a little bit clunkier combat and, you know, not as polished out, the RPG elements
are over the roof.
Like, if you're looking more for an RPG element and story-driven game than, like, an action combat-driven game, this is one for you.
This is where it's at.
Oh, yeah.
This is heavy on the RPG. And I love that this happened. So me and Chubbz went out exploring this beach, and we were clearing this beach, or were we going back? Where were we when this happened? Either way, we had just got done with one of our trips. No.
You know what it was? We came across that shrimp that shot the blues.
Yeah, but that was after we had went to bed, and we woke up, and it's winter all of a sudden.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, so like, and this is funny. So we're setting up camp for the night. I'm laying out my bedroll. I put it close to the fire, and I lay next to it, and it says, "You're overheating. Your character is hot." And I'm like, oh, fuck, okay. So I stand up, and I move it before we go to bed, because both players have to initiate the sleep, you know what I
Right,
mean?
yeah.
After you've selected build, you know, or repair,
Rest,
guard.
yeah, and the 3 different criteria.
For sleeping, you initiate it, and then the time passes, the night goes by, and you wake up the next morning. So I had just moved, and we did that, and I went to bed, and I woke up, and it said, fucking, your character is no longer hot, and it's snowing, and I'm like, well, I would hope not. And so we're like, okay, what do we do? I'm like, let's go explore, and fuck it, like, why not? So and we're lost now. Like, here in a little bit, we get lost. I'm not sure where we were.
Right.
And that's you have a map, but it doesn't show you your position on it. It shows you landmarks.
Yes.
And so with the landmarks, you're having to plot your own course.
And you get a compass. So it's
and
like...
you get a compass, but you got to plot your course, you know, and
based
say, okay.
off of landmarks and direction.
Yeah.
Kind of like how you would out in real
life.
Yeah.
It's fucking awesome. So we're wandering, and we see that fucking shrimp. And we had been killing these on the beach for like the last little 2 or 3 hours of gameplay. I mean, they fucked us up at first, but once I got that shield and I was able to taunt them to attack me while you poked them in the back, we were able to take them all down. Like, we died a few times, but the great thing about that, in co-op, if one player goes down, it gives the other player a chance to revive them without penalty. There's no penalty to it.
It lowers your maximum health, so each time you get revived, you have less health than you would if you died.
Yeah,
but still,
it gives you health burn.
You can revive repeatedly.
And health burn can be healed with potions, teas, I think. There's certain things that can cure that. So but it's not a huge penalty, and it makes it for some heated moments.
Oh yeah.
When you're piggyback reviving each other to beat this monster, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, that's crazy tough.
Yeah, so we pull this blue one. We're like, come on then, blue shrimp, let's do this. It fucking proceeds to shit all over us. It destroys us. I think I went out first, and then because we contracted the cold.
Yes, that's what it was. We had the cold, so we had negative status effects, and it lowered our resistances to certain damage types.
And this was a different shrimp monster. This was like a harder hitting one.
Yeah, it was like a higher level one.
So it when I went to block it, it threw me off my feet and knocked me on my back. And I was like, oh shit, Chubbz, this one's tougher. And he went in, and then I think I died or you died. I can't remember who died first.
Regardless, we both died. And this is a good way to sum up the mechanics of when you die.
Yeah, because it's so cool.
So when you die...
This is cool.
Yeah, so when you die, a random thing can happen. You will be revived, but you can be revived in town and getting robbed by a thief. Thief brings you to town, but he makes sure to rummage through your backpack and take everything you have before he leaves. And then you revive and all that stuff's gone. I don't
know if that can happen. That hasn't happened to us yet.
I don't know. I'm not sure if it can, but there are random things that can happen when you die, and this is one of those.
Well, we've had several. Let's say one of the times that we died, we got dragged into a hyena cave.
Right, and it's kind of during the in between. It talks about a story, and it does it.
Yeah,
in vivid
it tells
detail.
you what happened after the monster took the last bit of your health.
Right. Yeah.
So in that case, the hyena dragged us back to its lair to finish us off later.
Yeah.
And we woke up and we had to fight them. Then we had to get out of there, and then we were being chased by all those hyenas.
Yeah.
All the way, but that's a separate adventure.
And that's just one thing. Another thing that happened is we both died, and it was just a huntress pats you on the back or brings you to town in safety and doesn't accept payment, doesn't take anything.
They just help you.
Yeah.
It's Good Samaritan.
Exactly.
So there's a variety of things, but this time something insane happened.
It was crazy.
So the story unveils itself like a muscly creature, blah blah blah, and it's describing this monster, but it's preceded before that, it mentions that they ask, "Are you okay?" So it's "Are you okay?" But then it describes this monstrous-looking creature, right?
Right.
Then we fade to black. So we wake up in this cave with this thing called an Immaculate, which I'm sure will be enemies later on. And it's leaning on this pillar, reading a book, and it's fucking helped us, and it saved us. And it's telling us that it's uninterested with war. It's interested with reading.
It's a higher intelligent being.
He finds our
humanity like kind of a lesser existence on his plane of existence.
Yeah, but entertaining to view.
Yes,
and that's why he reads and stuff is because it's entertaining. Fake
stories entertaining.
And this guy, and this happened last night, and like this moment, I was just like, wow, this is insane. And then he gives me a coat. I ask him, can you help us? And he's like, sure, I don't have much, but here you go.
Yeah, here's one of 3 different options. What do you want?
Yeah,
because
that's
there were
true.
multiple different options. It wasn't just the code. It was like I could give you a skill.
Oh yeah,
or like I could give you a
yeah,
weapon.
that's true.
Yeah,
I forgot about that.
He asks you what you want, and you can sit there
and I pick gear.
And it's because we were just roaming around in the cold wilderness, and we were dying and freezing slowly to death. Which there is a meter showing your overall temperature.
Yeah, and you will die.
And once it gets cold enough, not only will you die, but as it gets closer to that point, you're slowing down.
But as we found out, there are bugs that you can make a tea with that increases your heat, your cold resistance.
There's weather resistance. Potions.
There's weather resistance potions. You can also just light a torch. It's much the same way that Breath of the Wild did it.
Right.
And for some reason, I never felt attached to that game. I almost felt pulled out of that game. But this game, I feel so immersed. And I can't explain that. So if you're someone who liked Breath of the Wild, you really might like this game. Because it has that sort of weather restriction. Where when it's cold, you need cold weather gear. But here I am. I should be punished. I died. Like, conventional game design says that if you die, you need to be penalized. Something, right? Something.
Yeah.
I mean, every game penalizes you in some way for dying. Whether it's making you go back a little bit or making you lose something. Like, there's always a penalty. But in this case, we just happened to roll the dice, and we ended up getting one of the pieces of winter gear that we would need to survive in this now cold environment.
Yeah, getting saved
from a demon.
Getting saved by a demon, waking up with a status effect called possession,
which is a beneficial buff
because he possessed you to bring you to his lair.
Yeah, to keep you safe. So he could give us a coat. Now these are the sorts of, like, Dark Thagan, he wrote a comment earlier and he was talking about how RPGs used to give you experiences, man, like player involved experiences. And when he was saying that, I was thinking in my head, I'm like, we gotta do a video on Outward.
Oh yeah.
We got to, because that's what this game does. This game gives you an adventure. This game gives you an experience. And it's not as well polished or fucking filled out or, as in what you would expect from a giant company. But it goddamn should be what you expect from these giant companies.
Oh yeah.
This is a level of care and love for not just the craft, but also the people involved in the craft. You want to call your customers hobbyists. Give a shit about them. Care about their intellectual understanding of what you're doing, and don't try to turn them into these, guinea pig fucking customers that are just going to throw hand over fist at your addictive microtransaction models. Because that's what 9 Dots did. They earned the fucking $80 that we gave them.
Oh, yeah.
They fucking earned that $80.
Which is another thing that's cool, by the way. Props to 9 Dots and Deep Silver. $40.
$40 only.
$20 off the standard AAA price of a video game. And from what I can tell, it's got more stuff to do in it than half of the $60 titles that have been coming out.
Yeah. And it's more intricate. It feels like people who cared about an experience and wanted to give the player a experience that's not easy. It doesn't coddle you.
No.
You will die.
Yeah.
But sometimes when you die, you're going to get saved by a demon and he's going to give you a fucking ball and fur coat.
You never know what's going to happen. You never know.
Fucking my endorsement is on this game 100%. After 9 hours, it's worth every penny. Pick it up. This is the fucking future, and it should be the future. Anthem, shit like that should be fucking thoughts of the past. Why spend money on these big AAA games with these companies that are driving their developers? That's one thing that he says right here. Did you know this is the final? We're gonna leave the final bit, and then we're gonna close out this video. So this is what it's not the final
of
paragraph,
their mission statement,
but this is the final thought I want to leave you with, and this is from 9 Dot Studios, the developers of Outward. One of the funnest games, one of the best experiences I've had in a game in a while. Like, just the sheer amount of joy from that one story alone. And there's been several other stories that haven't ended as well. But at the end of the day, each one of them is building us towards an experience that we're in charge of. Because when we die, it's because we fucked up. And when we get the, you know, the good thing, it's like just so unexpected. A demon possessed our unconscious bodies and took us into a cave by a fire and, you know,
let us sleep it out.
Let us sleep it out.
Well, he just sat up against the wall reading
his book.
Yeah.
Like, just chilling. Fucking awesome. Then there was, like, that troll that was murdered. It looked like a troll.
Yeah.
Murdered in, like, a basin in that dungeon.
Yeah.
Like, dude.
And leading up to this, there's, like, shrines to this female figure. Like, statues and sacrificial shrines and troglodytes.
This game has a lot of adventure, a lot of journey in it. And I love you guys. We're going to leave it with this, but I love you guys. See you next time. We'll be coming back. Thanks for hanging out and watching. Go pick this game up if you're interested. I definitely recommend it.
Take care, everyone.
Talk to you later. Did you know that on average, game developers quit the industry after only 5 years? A worrying number when you think that developers studied about 4 years on average to get in. This situation is mostly due to poor working conditions and the inability to conciliate work and family. Here's a small sample of issues very commonly observed. Unreasonable amounts of overtime, lack of transparency from upper management, working on uninteresting projects or always working on the same franchise, poor selection for leadership positions, Luke Smith. Of course, complaining alone won't change anything. So what are we going to do about it? The key is to be in control as much as possible. We get to choose our projects, our deadlines, and our priorities. We also impose a limit of 52 hours of work per week, but we very rarely go over 40. We have strict internal policies and allow everyone to voice their concerns about the gamer management. Essentially, we do everything we can to make sure the whole team is on the same page and working on a project they feel is their own. And that's Outward.